Welcome everyone to Monday Morning Morons for November 11th, 2019. This week, let's begin with mind-boggling stupidity. Tulane students vote for higher tuition to support marginalized students. Student government leaders at Tulane University in New Orleans resolved last week to charge themselves and their peers, mostly their peers, an extra $240 each in order to support programs focusing on marginalized students on campus with a particular focus on black students. The legislation for the equity fee requires that each student's cost to attend the college increase by $240. The funds will be used to support black students and other students from marginalized communities. How exactly? Currently, Tulane lists the cost of tuition and fees for freshman students during the 2020-2021 academic year as $58,850. A black student group called LeGroit Violets drafted the bill, naming several departments and offices that would be beneficiaries of the fees, including the University's Center for Academic Equity and the Office of Gender and Sexual Diversity. Proposed use of the funds includes tuition grants and study abroad scholarships for marginalized students. There we go. You're basically a mentally challenged Robin Hood. While he stole from the rich, you're just going to steal from everyone. Bravo! At least you've been equitable on that side of the equation, I guess. Though it doesn't make a shitload of sense to me, because what happens if I'm one of these so-called marginalized people? I still have to pay this brand new equity fee because you just made it mandatory for all students, genius. During the Student Senate meeting preceding the vote to establish the fee, LeGroit Violets member Camia Stewart clarified the group's motivation for the proposal by accusing the university of exhibiting institutionalized racism. So what we are saying is that Tulane is anti-black, said Stewart. We're also saying that Tulane is not equitable. Equity, as it pertains to race, is when race can no longer be used to predict life outcomes, and outcomes for all groups are improved. Then you're never going to achieve it, Toots. Unless, of course, you think taking away people's money is somehow improving their outcomes. You see the problem with your utopian dream yet? In your plan, in order to make one group's outcomes better, you have to make another's outcomes worse. Since you simply cannot make everyone a billionaire, your only option for this equity you seek is to make everyone poor. Congratulations on achieving equity. But did you really make any group's outcomes better? The dollar amount for the fee was chosen because it is roughly the same that students already pay in regular student fees. I want to remind you that the Riley renovation cost us $68 million, and students pay that bill through the recreation fee, Student Senator Daya Wells said when trying to justify doubling students' fees. Tulane Executive Director for Public Relations Mike Strecker told student newspaper Tulane Hullabaloo that the university plans to study this resolution and its potential impact on the student body. In the grand scheme of things, this isn't just for black students. We are uplifting black students in this effort, but this isn't just for black students. It effectively helps all students, Wells said. Totally helps out everyone because they were so tired of having all that money they couldn't spend. Thank heavens you've relieved them of that burden, huh? Next with Bob. Students reportedly upset with passive police response to street preacher. Police allegedly ignored physical and emotional safety of students. Well, that sounds bad. I mean, cops don't exist to guarantee your emotional safety, so I don't really give a fuck about that part. But if this so-called street preacher was physically assaulting people, then absolutely he should have been arrested. Some students at Yale University were reportedly upset last week when police failed to do anything about a street preacher shouting offensive slogans on campus. Several even reported a cop bringing the preacher a cup of coffee. Come again? He was doing what? A street preacher shouting offensive slogans on campus. Okay, so, where's the physical threat? I mean, you're demanding the police protect your physical safety, so there must have been a physical threat somewhere, right? The preacher, identified by the Yale Daily News as Brother Stephen, reportedly posted up on a street corner in the heart of Yale campus, shouting derogatory statements at Yale students and New Haven high schoolers, according to the paper. These included incendiary remarks about Muslims, Jews, and homosexuals. Some students organized a counter-protest, playing music from speakers and shouting, "Gay is good," at the preacher. Actually, I think that slogan is "Gay is happy," but whatever. Counter-protest, shouting things he clearly wouldn't agree with. That's fine. Actually seems like the appropriate response to me, so I've got no problem with that. But if yelling things you don't want to hear means he's harassing you, then aren't you now harassing him by yelling things he doesn't want to hear? And I'm still waiting to hear about the physical threat. On a campus Facebook group, one student claimed the preacher was a white supremacist and that a white police officer had given him a cup of coffee and a pat on the back. One other student told the Yale Daily News that she also saw a police officer bring the preacher coffee. She claimed the gesture and the police officer's unwillingness to confront the preacher was unacceptable. Okay, look, guys, gals, whatever you are, you've got to at least make a consistent claim, okay? Either the police didn't confront him at all, or they walked up, patted him on the back, and gave him some coffee. It can't be both, all right? Now, where's the physical violence you need protecting from? According to students, the preacher's diatribe was closer to a malicious attack rather than a reasoned disagreement. Student Hannah Sachs said she was walking from her job at the Yale University Art Gallery on Thursday afternoon when she heard the man tell students that they are going to hell. According to Sachs, the man then began gushing vitriol about Native American students. He also claimed that the university hates Jesus because Jesus is opposed to lesbianism, Sachs said. Sachs reported the preacher to the YPD on Thursday for hate speech and harassment and was informed that officers were en route, she said. She added that she saw one officer at the scene who was sitting in his patrol car. Like Gorin, Sachs also said she spotted an officer offering the man a cup of coffee. The officers on Friday were chatting jovially and seemingly uninterested in the man's verbal harassment of passing students, Sachs added. She argued that there is a massive difference between protecting free speech and supporting hate speech. The police officers' actions showed no regard for the physical and emotional safety of those impacted by hate speech, Sachs noted. It fits into a narrative of active antagonism through clear refusal to take action for all people of color, which impacts Yale students as well as New Haveners. Nash Keys, 21, who attended the Friday protest, said in an interview with The News. A university spokesman said the school had no knowledge of Yale police officers engaging in such an activity. Okay, so couple things, Hannah. One, according to your own testimony here, you were walking from one place to another and passed by where this guy was. Unless you left something rather important out, that's not harassment by any stretch of the word. Did he follow you around? Not that you mentioned. Did he target his comments specifically at you? No. He's simply a loony on a street corner yelling things you don't like. That is not harassment. Secondly, you state there is a massive difference between protecting free speech and supporting hate speech. No, there actually isn't. Supreme Court case Mattal versus Tam. Justice Kennedy writes, a law that can be directed against speech found offensive to some portion of the public can be turned against minority and dissenting views to the detriment of all. The First Amendment does not entrust that power to the government's benevolence. Instead, our reliance must be on the substantial safeguards of free and open discussion in a democratic society. Or, to put it in another way that's perhaps even more relatable, United States versus Schwimmer. Justice Holmes writes, speech that demeans on the basis of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, age, disability, or any other similar ground is hateful. But the proudest boast of our free speech jurisprudence is that we protect the freedom to express the thought that we hate. You see, exactly what you're currently whining about was already settled by the Supreme Court 90 years ago. There is no hate speech exception to the First Amendment. People can still say unflattering things you don't like, no matter how much you don't like them. In fact, that's the entire fucking point of the amendment in the first place. Popular speech, or sentiments of the majority, don't need protection. Only unpopular speech, or sentiments expressed by a minority, do. Why did the police not stop this man from saying words you didn't want to hear? Because they can't. He is constitutionally protected in his right to say all of that crap, even if you and I don't like it or agree with it. Why were they just sitting there watching? Because they were waiting to see him do the one thing he's not allowed to do: physically assault you. Had he done so, no matter how slight, he could have been arrested and removed. But he didn't, did he? You cried wolf, then got pissed off because the village didn't rush out and trample someone's constitutional rights. You are the problem here, not that Looney Tune preacher babbling stupid shit. What's next, Bob? Berkeley speaker advocates for alternate interpretations of First Amendment. Of course he does. The University of California, Berkeley invited a reporter to speak about free speech issues of interest to students. Their invited expert suggests altering the current interpretation of the First Amendment and suggests that free speech absolutism is being used as an excuse for paralysis. A journalist expert on free speech. Call me skeptical. Free speech under U.S. law is not absolute. Everyone knows that. Things like libel, slander, inciting violence, etc. are not protected under the First Amendment. Surely your expert should know that already, right? The university invited New Yorker staff writer Andrew Marantz to discuss his new book, Antisocial: Online Extremists, Techno-Utopians, and the Hijacking of the American Conversation. Oh, it's a sales tour for his book. What a fucking surprise. Marantz's appearance took the form of a panel discussion comprised of Marantz, Berkeley Graduate School of Journalism Dean Ed Wasserman, and Berkeley Chancellor Carol Christ. Sounds like a real panel of experts to me. What's the matter? Barney, Bozo, and SpongeBob couldn't make it? Berkeley Assistant Vice Chancellor of Executive Communications and panel moderator Dan Moguloff told Campus Reform that the university invited Marantz because he has covered issues related to free speech of interest to the members of the campus community, adding that the university is interested in a broad range of perspectives on contemporary issues, and that it hosts talks and events featuring speakers from across the ideological and intellectual spectrum. Oh, wait, you were serious? Having been invited to the university in this capacity, Marantz began his speech by denying the validity of the marketplace of ideas, saying the faith we have that this system is going to basically function and self-correct is just totally misplaced. Yeah, either you don't understand the phrase or you're intentionally misrepresenting it. I'm not sure which one yet. Focusing on how extreme ideologies take hold via social media, Marantz asserted a need for creators of platforms to think about the problems inherent in the ideas of American exceptionalism, free speech, good marketplace of ideas, so that they build the proper safeguards into platforms to make sure that things don't go haywire. Okay, intentionally misrepresenting it, I guess. So we need to stop people from speaking freely because they might say something like, America is an exceptional country. Oh shit! I think a little piece of the sky just fell into my living room, and I didn't even outright assert it, I just asked a question. This is where the marketplace of ideas comes into play there, super genius. If you think America is not exceptional, then make your case. If you're so sure you're right, then you should be able to convince others to agree with you, right? That's the real problem, isn't it? You can't convince enough people you're right, so all you can do is ban every other opinion. Marantz compared allowing free speech on social media sites to having a party in a warehouse and allowing other attendees to set a couch on fire. Right off the top of my head, that sounds like a really stupid analogy, but let's see where you're going to go with it. You might strongly disapprove of the person lighting the couch on fire and feel very concerned and have a deeply furrowed brow on your face. But you set the conditions that made that possible. You did or didn't have a policy at the door of who was going to get carded. You made the lighting choices. You made the music choices. You chose not to have a functional PA system at the party so that if somebody does start lighting a couch on fire, there's some way to quickly alert everyone. Hey guys, there's a couch on fire. We need to do something about this. You just opened the doors and said, the marketplace will figure it out, Marantz said. And if you're wrong, which in the case of our current real timeline, they were wrong, it's not really clear what you can do once it's too late. And you have authoritarians installed in 10 major democracies and all the rest of it. What? You might strongly wish to approve policy. Okay, look, I literally have no idea what the hell you're even trying to say there. So let's break this shit down one step at a time, okay? So in your analogy, we're throwing a party. At this party, we decided who was or wasn't going to get in. Now, that's not a marketplace of ideas at work there, but an authoritarian ruler making decisions. So I have no idea how you imagine that is analogous to free speech, but I don't know. Let's continue anyway. Now, apparently, we were not clever enough to make sure the pyromaniac wasn't on the guest list, or stop him at the door while we were carding everyone we chose to let in, which, again, not a marketplace of ideas or democratic in any way, but, whatever. So he or she comes in and lights the couch on fire. Now, we don't have a PA system because, well, frankly, it's our house, not a stadium, and the room isn't that fucking big, but, forethought and all. We totally should have had one in case the pyro we evidently invited did exactly this. So now we can't tell everyone in the room to avoid the burning couch because we can't yell loud enough to be heard, and all the people we hand-selected to come into this party are apparently too stupid to avoid the open flames. So we all just stand around waiting for, some mystical, magical force called the marketplace to put the fire out. And doing so somehow allows Angela Merkel to seize control of 10 democratic countries. Well, I don't think that makes sense either, Bob, but I'll be fucked if I can figure out what the hell he's trying to say and how in the nine hells that's an analogy for free speech or the marketplace of ideas. Marantz's book is an expose of fringe political ideologies, who he classifies as right-wing extremists. When asked about left-wing extremism, he insisted there is no analogous mirror image on the left, claiming that America was built on a pretty solid foundation of white supremacy, which has always been used by what has been called the political right. So, somehow in your head, that tortured pile of babbling crap up there is analogous to free speech and the marketplace of ideas. But you can't think of anything at all analogous to violent left-wing extremism. It's such a bizarre and unprecedented concept that there has never, ever been any real-world examples of it. Yeah, you're a journalist, all right. Which is not to say that there can't be lovely people on the right who are really nice and get along and play Little League with people of all races, Marantz joked, before reiterating that the underlying foundational structure of this country has always been what it's been and always taken to a certain political valence. The names of the parties have flipped and all that stuff, he added, shooting down specious Dinesh D'Souza arguments about how Democrats are the real racists. I don't pay attention to Dinesh, so I have no idea what he argues. But if that's one of his arguments, then at the very least, he's got one thing right anyway. And I keep hearing all this, the parties flipped gibberish. But as I've illustrated before, I don't agree. Far as I can tell, the only thing that's changed is their tactics. Marantz also spoke about the election of President Donald Trump, claiming that Trump was able to win because of fringe ideologies that are allowed to keep percolating and keep bubbling up on their own due to ungoverned algorithms on the internet. Ah, yes. The best way to convince people they're wrong is to just cut out their tongue. He also spoke about the culture at Fox News and its role in helping Trump get elected, which he believes is both the result of the supposed fact that Donald Trump ate the Republican Party from the inside, and that apparently Rupert Murdoch just will never die, and he will just never pass on control to the next generation. Interesting, isn't it? These folks seem super duper pissed off that Fox seems to be supportive of Republicans. And yet, they're not at all concerned that every other news outlet actively, demonstrably, and repeatedly works for the DNC. Almost like their only really complaint is that they don't have total monopoly. There's still one wrong thinker out there somewhere, and that's totally pissing me off. Wasserman countered Marantz's assertion by saying that the Republican Party has been eating itself for the last 40 years. So have the Democrats, but I wouldn't expect you to see that half of the pie. I'll skip the rest. It's just more orange man bad drivel, and you've already occupied too much of my time trying to figure out what the fuck you were trying to say with that horrible analogy. Toxic time, Bob. Alabama mother accused of killing 2 sons, stabbing herself, is jailed on murder charges, report says. An Alabama mother accused of killing her 2 young sons is in jail facing murder charges after she'd spent the last 2 weeks in the hospital recovering from self-inflicted wounds, according to a local report. Sarah Tapia allegedly murdered her sons Taylor Garcia, 9, and Alvaro Garcia, 3, earlier this month in a Coleman County home, AL.com reported. Coleman County is an hour's drive north of Birmingham. Tapia reportedly had been in the hospital since October 12th, initially listed in critical condition from apparently self-inflicted wounds. Sheriff's deputies said Tapia was found with self-inflicted knife wounds, and a knife was recovered from the scene, according to the news outlet. Tracking dogs reportedly helped the investigators find Tapia in a field a few hundred yards from the home. Tapia's sons were pronounced dead at the scene, according to the report. It was unclear what may have motivated Tapia to allegedly kill her sons. Unclear? Are you kidding me? It's obvious. She was viciously attacked by 2 toxic little males and defended herself. I don't even know why this is even a question at this point. All the evidence is there. Of course her wounds were self-inflicted, dumbass. She had to quickly and violently wave that knife around to get those 2 tiny little toxic bastards. Makes sense that she'd have accidentally hit herself once or a dozen times. Okay, so let's wrap it up this week with some more good news. Money talks. Professor says budget cuts are a result of taxpayers fighting back objectively crazy university culture. As states around the country cut public university budgets, one professor says such cuts can be directly related to taxpayers' disdain for the fact that higher education has become objectively crazy. I'll let you all read this one for yourselves if you like. They do give a couple other reasons why education budgets are shrinking as well, but the fact that taxpayers are finally starting to understand this farce is encouraging. Maybe one day they'll start realizing this bullshit isn't being saved just for college campuses. It's also happening in your taxpayer-funded high schools, taxpayer-funded middle schools, taxpayer-funded elementary schools, and the taxpayer-funded fucking daycare too. Take it to your local, state, and federal government reps, folks. Demand they stop wasting your money paying for this stupid shit. We don't pay the Klan to teach people that black people are evil. Maybe we shouldn't be paying these so-called progressive assholes to teach everyone that white people are the devil, huh? That's it for this week. Remember the social justice mantra. Women are victims, men are oppressors, and feminism is just about equality. I'll see you all next time.